Chapter 17:01. Unlock the vault. The cleric spun the wheel on the vault door, unlocking the vault. Inside, magical artifacts had been simply thrown in piles, clearly hastily relocated, but many of the shelves were already empty. So, if this was the extent of what was left, someone had already made off with the most valuable of the clan's items. Or, they were never here. This vault was the one that we used for alchemy potions, and it was usually pretty empty. They went out as fast as they came in. But it is secure enough for volatile compounds, the cleric explained. Remy nodded, confirming her words for Carl. This place smelled like they stored potions and herbs in it for many years. The sense of medicine had seeped into everything. Nerissa sighed, knowing that this was going to take some time. You know, there is an easy way to do this. Allie offered. Oh, just take the live plants and the cash. It's not like you really need any of the other stuff, it's mediocre at best. All the good stuff was likely on the elders that died in combat. They would have cleared out all the most valuable items for the attack to give themselves an advantage in combat. So, clear out the clan's cash reserves and let the survivors take what is left to pawn or buy their place in a new clan. That's actually brilliant. I was planning to do the math, but that is much easier, and even if we come up short, we've at least received something to make it clear to the other clans that we complied with the rules without skipping the punishment or going overboard. Allie nodded. The Darklight host does it because we've got so many craftsmen in the clan that we only need raw materials anyhow. So, we don't take the magical artifacts unless it's something really rare. Nerissa sighed. That's possibly the most devastating casual flex I've ever heard. The elf giggled, then winked at Carl. Soon, your clan will be just as bad. Trust me, there is never one runecrafter. It's impossible. They will always eventually agree to take an apprentice, and then the warehouse of the clan will start to fill with immortal rank gear. So much of it that you will have a hard time finding local customers for it all after a few decades. In a way, it's an advantage that you're a merchant guild. You've already got the network to move the extra gear, once your whole clan is rocking the best of the best. Now, do you need a storage item or something? What's the holdup? Nerissa shook her head and took out a villa stone to throw all the cash and plants into. She would give the plants to Socrate and the herbalist later. For now, they would be fine sitting in a villa. All right, let's head off to the Hyperion sect and see what is going on there. They were never a large clan to begin with, only a few hundred members. So, there likely won't be much of an issue with them. Famous last words. The elf joked. Don't jinx it. We had enough issues with the Templars before you came to reinforce us. I appreciate your restraint while we were over the city. There are 4 other clans in the immediate vicinity, and none of them joined the attack on us. Allie nodded. All right, I will let Merrick know that we're leaving. He's likely teaching the hatchling something about the aftermath of battles that only matters to black dragons. Her assessment wasn't far off. Merrick was using a spell to organize the bodies into neat rows for final rites and burial, a task that was considered sacred to the black dragons, but commonly overlooked by others. As the genetic inheritors of the dragon god of death, the transition between life and death was important to them, even if they were the one that caused it. Curiously to Nerissa, Ray was helping them with the organization, and she had even brought out some white silk sheets to lay over the corpses. It was odd behavior for a spider, as the followers of the spider goddess were as likely to eat their prey as to leave them on the battlefield intact. Rarely would they perform any sort of rites over them. Then, she noticed that Ray had relocated and rebuilt the Templar's temple next to the swimming pool, which was now 3/4 full of blood. If anyone was going to perform funeral rites, the logical place for it was now right next to a pool full of the blood of the dead. That was much more in line with the antics of the spider goddess that she was familiar with. Ray, are you done? Carl called as he saw Ray working. I will stay here for a while. There is too much essence here to waste, so I'm going to go for a swim before I head back home. All right. But maybe ask Opal to create an illusion over the area first so you don't traumatize the children. Ray laughed, and Carl caught a flash of all the things she'd already done around the clan compound. It was far too late to avoid trauma. Fortunately, Opal was feeling helpful, and created an illusion over the pool area that made it look like a temple to the spider goddess on the inside and had a solid stone wall surrounding it when viewed from the outside. Now Ray could go swimming without anyone peeping on her. Other than Opal. Ewan waved as he noticed that everyone was back, and then finished his prayer over the last of the corpses. All right, we did the dragon things. We can go now. Do you think that the next place will have snacks? I'm hungry. We have snacks for you if they don't. Or you can return to the nest for dinner. Carl suggested. Ewan considered the options. All were good. But he had to see the adventure to the end so that he could tell everyone about it without any missing details. I will accompany you to the last stop before dinner. But I might need a snack. Merrick chuckled at the little one, then handed him a bit of jerky. Ewan tore into it with great enthusiasm, having never experienced jerky before. He knew fresh meat, cooked meat, and baked snacks. Yet he didn't know this. Chapter 1702. Contract Transfer. Clan leader Nerissa opened the portal to the Hyperion sex compound and led the group through immediately, eager to finish this and get home for the evening. Only when she arrived, the place was essentially abandoned. There were a few dozen bunnies, and a crippled immortal whose legs had been severed by divine power, which none of the local healers could mitigate enough to regenerate his limbs. Allie smiled and patted the nearest bunny on the head, while the girls stared at her in confusion. May I help you? As you can see, everyone left. We don't have anything to take if you're here for money. You will have to find the actual sect members to collect any outstanding debts. Nerissa sighed. We're the new home merchant clan. The Hyperion sect was disbanded by the system after their guild leader was killed in single combat during the attack on our clan. Oh, that's helpful. We've got system contracts that changed to whoever killed him. Do you know who it was? That would be Carl. What sort of contract do you have? Nerissa asked. Oh, our slave contracts. They were to the leader personally, not the sect, so they didn't dissolve, they transferred. Dana poked Carl in the side. Take care of that. No matter how much you want bunnies, you can't keep slave girls. Carl stepped forward, and when he patted the bunny's head, a flood of system messages came to him, ending with one simple message. Contracts transferred. 32 slave contracts gained. Process now? Contracts processing. Please select an option. Carl frowned, then opened his interface to see what the options were. Enforce contract. Refresh full contract duration 999 years, 985 years currently remaining. Nullify contract with penalty. Nullify contract without penalty. What sort of contract had they signed that allowed him to refresh it at will? Never mind. He didn't need to think about that. It obviously wasn't voluntary. The bunnies were just too tender-hearted to hold it against him. Contracts nullified without penalty. The bunnies all looked shocked as they got the system message, but Carl was already speaking. As the Hyperion sect has been disbanded and there is no longer a proper protector for you, you can come back to the new home merchant clan with me. I have work and accommodations for you. Nerissa frowned, as they already had all the bunnies they needed. Then, Carl looked at Ewan, and the clan leader smiled gently. Letting the hatchlings loose on the bunnies was a fitting job for them. Few other species had the energy to keep up with a dragon hatchling, so it was the perfect assignment for them, and Carl had plenty of room in his tiny world for new arrivals. Perhaps now that he has bunnies, he will leave the hatchlings alone. Merrick muttered as the excited bunnies ran off to go pack their stuff. They had already decided that Carl was a good guy, as he had freed them from their contract so they could leave any time that they wanted to. That alone was priceless to the bunnies of this world, but Allie was doing her very best not to say something that might cause a misunderstanding. Only once they were all gone did she finally speak. The Carl really is one of us. Just smoothly obtained all the fluffy things, and now he's building up his pet menagerie, she joked. Dana frowned. At least he can't bond with the bunnies. They might be furry, but they're not beasts, according to the system. That is true, and while dragons do count before they awaken a system interface, beast master-type classes bonding them has always caused issues with the dragon gods. Only the green dragon doesn't mind, but I think that her children actually drive her insane too, and she's happy to foist them off on someone else, the elf explained. I don't know why they get such a bad reputation, they're really not all that bad. At least as long as you monitor their caffeine intake and keep them occupied. That made both the elf and the clan leader smile. And that's why you're the beast master, and I'm just a ranger. I couldn't do it. Not at all. I like nature, but I like to relax in nature. And with a green dragon around, there isn't a single moment of silence. I swear, for a nature-attuned species, they are the worst hunters in the world, completely incapable of sneaking up on anything unless it's fluffy. They can't sneak up on fluffy things either. They just aren't threatening enough for most of them to run away. The bunnies are actually remarkably good at dodging them, I have noticed. Carl noted. The clan leader laughed and shook her head. It's almost like it's a special racial ability at this point. They're the masters of vanishing without actually turning invisible. Are you sure that you can keep them properly housed? The bunnies are used to the living conditions in the immortal world, so it might be a harsh adjustment to living wherever you're planning to send them.
Carl shook his head.
No, it shouldn't be an issue. The pocket dimension that they'll be working with the hatchlings in has both mortal and immortal energy. They'll have the same sort of living conditions that they're used to, perhaps a bit better, given that they're not going to be under a contract restriction. Ali nodded. I can agree with that. His space is quite suitable for them, and it has access to the mortal world. Having other mortals around will be good for the mental health of the bunnies, and the Darklight host has always been kind to their employees and mortal members. Nerissa smiled, then got a suspicious expression. Why am I getting a premonition of immortal bunnies loaded up with the strangest of crafting skills? Merrick patted her gently on the shoulder, careful not to dislodge Ewan. Because it's going to happen. Anything that the Darklight host takes and eventually ends up with abnormal skills, it's just part of being in the guild. You might as well take in the cripple as well. There's not much left for him with the bunnies gone. Chapter 1703. New Pants. The crippled immortal had the grace to at least look embarrassed to be counted as a tag along to the bunnies, which somehow actually rated higher than him on the list now. He might have lost both his legs to the attack of a demigod, an injury that nobody had managed to heal so far, but that didn't mean that he couldn't do anything. He still had skills, and while his power level was also crippled and his immortal spirit damaged, he could still fly, so he wasn't immobile. That didn't mean that any sect would take him in, though. Unless they needed someone to work a counter, a damaged spirit immortal who couldn't even go on normal missions would be a liability anywhere. Merrick looked him over, and then shrugged. That damage is beyond my ability to fix. We could probably destroy the body and hope that the damage isn't attached to his soul, but I suspect that he would rather not take that risk. You would be correct. It has been considered before, but we all ran into the same issue. Nobody knows if the damage is soul-linked, or if it will vanish along with my body. And I'm not too keen to find out. Carl shrugged. Well, we can always just give you prosthetics. The whole group turned to look at him, while Dana nodded. Give him what now? Artificial legs, mechanical replacements for the missing limbs? They're not hard to make even without magic, and with runecrafting, I should be able to make them work as well as his actual legs. It's kind of a niche skill since we've got healers who can regrow limbs most of the time. The crippled immortal smiled. Can you really make me something like that? It would be good to walk around on my own again even if it isn't as good as real legs. That made Merrick laugh. What about an immortal artifact would possibly be worse than your physical body? No offense, but your power level isn't high and humans aren't exactly known for their durability. Even the bunnies could likely take a punch as well as you do, if it wasn't for the immortal blessing. Not that anyone would actually punch a bunny. There were a lot of despicable things that the immortal world would condone, including keeping the bunnies as enslaved servants, but outright assaulting one? That was something that only the lowest of the low would stoop to. They were widely considered to be the most kind and gentle creatures in the realm, which seemed odd, given that the beasts whose bloodline they shared were known for being incredibly deadly, with a version of instant death on their attacks. Many green dragon clerics had succumbed to the fate of death by Vorpal Rabbit. Why don't I make the legs first and you can help us pack? I'm sure that the clan left something behind when they fled, even if it's just clothing and foodstuffs that the bunnies can use to stock their new homes. The immortal nodded, and Carl quickly made simple stone legs before covering them in runes that should allow them to move with the wearer's desire. They were hollow and shaped like natural legs, intended to look like a disguise. Then Carl realized that there was a better way to do this. If he just finished making them into a pair of pants, they could be equipped by the system and removed as needed. But he wouldn't need all the fancy rune work. He could just give it a simple inscription for steady strides or another similar movement effect. Then, as long as the immortal moved his upper legs with the intention to walk, he would have no problems doing it. There might be some limitations, as it was just a buff to prevent tripping and to walk smoothly on all surfaces. But it was better than nothing. Item created: prosthetic pants of steady stride, immortal rank, rare grade. Carl handed over the pile of metal and gestured for the immortal to put them on. The equipment vanished, and shiny metal armored legs appeared from beneath the man's robes. Hesitantly, he shifted his weight, and then stood up and took a slow step. This is wonderful. I didn't think that anyone could do this. Being a divine curse, I've been trying for decades to find another immortal to heal my legs. It never occurred to me that I could have equipment made to replace them. Clan leader Narissa shrugged. You might have had better luck finding a demigod that could heal you than a runecrafter who knew how to make fake legs until this last year. My first thought was just to strap you to a sword and let you fly around. Allie shook her head in dismay. These immortals really were too dependent on skills instead of crafting. This was what happened when you didn't have a Darklight host outreach program on your world. However, Carl was here now, and he would advance soon enough. Give it half a century, and he would be thinking about his own outreach program. Such was the way of the Darklight host. Collect the fluffy things, make the cool toys, and eventually just have your friends step in and take over because everyone else was acting like idiots. It was honestly astonishing how the World Dragon managed to find the same sorts of people to pull into his guild, no matter what world he found them on. It was possible that he could simply see their future, but Carl was nearly perfect for the guild. She hadn't even needed an hour to know that. He had even soul-bonded himself to a divine fox, so he would have an eternal source of fluff. That had to be the reason, because what sane man would accept that bond simply because he was getting married? And what wife would offer it? It was definitely to secure the fluff. Chapter 1704. Members obtained. Now that he was mobile again, the immortal made good on his word and rushed off through the clan compound to grab whatever he could that might make their lives easier. Nothing of value had been left behind. In fact, nothing of value had been here to begin with. The clan was dirt poor after a series of poor decisions about paying for access to resources that didn't earn them as much as they were spending. But that didn't matter anymore. The new home clan leader had agreed to take him in, and that was enough for him to start over. He returned with a few things he could find stuffed into his inventory, and a stack of bedding from one of the shops for the bunnies. They wouldn't think to take it, and it wasn't good enough for the rest of the clan to bother with. But it was decent enough, and better than what the bunnies had before. Give these to your new bunnies. I'm sure that they wouldn't think of taking anything but what was already theirs, even if it was abandoned, he explained, handing the bundle to Carl. Right, I really do need to be more specific with them. They would likely think that taking the abandoned goods would be stealing. And while they didn't have much, they wouldn't even think of stealing. Losing what they had would be horrible, so they wouldn't do that to someone else. So, Carl would have to explain to them that these things no longer belonged to anyone else, and were discarded items that needed to be collected. That should be enough to get them to take enough of the furniture and other belongings to stock a new set of rooms in the tiny world. However, the bunnies had no system interface. So, they couldn't store anything, and returned a few minutes later with large packs and a delivery cart loaded with their belongings. This is everything. We're ready to go when you are, one of the bunnies announced. He would just make them all new things, Carl decided. It would be better than having them run around the clan looking for scraps and leftovers, when the other immortal had likely grabbed everything worth taking. There was no shortage of crafting talent available to the residents of the tiny world, and Lotus would make sure that these new arrivals got anything they needed, even if they didn't mention it. All right, off we go. It's best that we get home in time for dinner. Carl agreed. The bunnies cheered, and the immoral bowed toward the clan leader. If it's not too much to ask, might I request induction into the new home clan before we return? I've still got time on the old clan tag, and given my injuries, I would rather not be attacked the moment that I arrive. Oh right. I have sent you an invitation. Welcome to the new home merchant clan, Icon. I will have the elders find you an empty apartment and show you around the clan compound. Normally, we would take in more people after a dissolution, but then we've never been part of the dissolution before, so I can see how it could get weird. Icon strongly suspected that the clan leader was greatly overestimating the tolerance level of her clan members. If he showed up there with a clan tag from one of the allied forces that had tried to take over the new home, he would be the furthest thing from welcome, especially given the amount of destruction in the city. New Home had suffered extensive damage to nearly all its housing and shops, and while it wasn't completely annihilated like the compound of the Gralpedran Templars, it was not in good shape by any definition of the word. However, if he dedicated himself to helping fix things, he might blend in fairly easily. The problem was that he was a warrior, and the skills that he could use were not well suited to construction work. After his injury, he had been assigned to the sex supply counter. Perhaps he could do the same thing here? They wouldn't trust a new member in the warehouse, but he could likely work shifts at the counter taking orders and distributing supplies. The warehouse was guaranteed to be overloaded with work. Elder Douglas was thinking the same thing. They hadn't put the new member on punishment detail, but he needed workers. Come with me when we reach the compound, and I will put you to work after I show you to your temporary room. Given the damage, we don't have many spare apartments, if any. So, I'll give you a cot in the warehouse. You seem like the sort that can get along with the bunnies and not make them vanish to avoid harassment. As long as you can handle shifts there, I'll make sure that you don't get too many problems from the other members. The new home has a hazing ritual, a challenge to rank new members. Given that your immortal soul is damaged, you won't rank too highly on the spirit immortal listings, so it's not going to be a big deal for you in the near future. They initiate everyone? Elder Socrate laughed. Everyone. They even challenged the badger. I don't think that they will do that twice. Carl and Dana are both newer members, and they fought their challenges the first or second day. Lady Ray didn't have a formal challenge, but only because she killed someone during a fight on her first day. Not permanently, but it was enough for everyone to decide that she wasn't the bottom of the pile. Icon nodded as he examined Dana with his system interface. She didn't look threatening, not like Carl. He was obviously a combat sort with the muscular build and the void black eyes that could only be from some sort of combat adaptation. In contrast, Dana was more like the bunnies. Soft and friendly-looking with big fluffy ears. Yet, the way that she walked, and the casual way that her hand rested on the blade at her hip, made it clear that she was proficient in combat. He didn't think that she was a warrior, though. More likely a battle mage. His system didn't tell him what her class was, only a relative power ranking that put her at the peak of Spirit Immortal, as she hadn't fully begun the process of adapting her immortal spirit for his analysis to recognize her as a Void Immortal. If the elders had called the two of them for assistance, they had to be strong combatants, no matter what their class was. Chapter 1705, New Home Needs Work. By the time that they arrived back at the clan, things were actually starting to look a bit better. The clan members had been cleaning, and repairs had started. The members had turned that into a form of front street festival, with everyone either grilling food, working on repairs, or watching the children as they rested after one of the two. Icon was shocked by the community spirit of the new home merchant clan, even after taking such heavy damage. Even in victory, that level of damage would normally see a clan lose membership. The culture of the immortal worlds was strongly opportunist. If you didn't have what they needed at the very moment that they realized they wanted it, they would start looking elsewhere. And that meant few had the patience for the rebuilding. Is that everyone safely back at the clan? Nerissa asked as she counted the elders. We only left Ray and Opal behind, but they can find their own way back from the Templars' compound. Carl agreed. Are you certain? Why did they remain behind? There was nothing left, and I won't approve of letting the spider eat the survivors. Carl laughed. That's not it. You see, being a blood destruction spider, her advancement process is strongly dependent on the vital essence of blood at or above her rank. Her battle in the Templars' compound nearly filled a swimming pool with it, and she's taking a little swim to absorb the energy before she returns. Allie shuddered, while Merrick simply shrugged. That's somehow both incredibly disturbing and erotic at the same time, the legendary Black Dragon noted. The elf gave him a concerned look. See, this is why we worry about you. Yuan flapped over from the dragon's shoulder to land in her arms.
Why are you worried about him?
Auntie Ray is very nice. She taught me all sorts of things about how to properly use my claws when I first hatched. That was very kind of her, the legend agreed. He had done what he could to put the little one back on the right path, and perhaps steered him away from attempting to bond with the pet master in a more permanent way. But it was clear that he really had been too late. That one was never going to be normal.
Perhaps it might not be in the worst way, though.
The Darklight host members were never quite normal, and the curiosity might actually help the little black dragon grow up into a strong and well-rounded member of the species. We should be getting back home as well. If I stay here much longer, it will begin to raise questions, even with my aura suppressed, Merrick sighed. Ali nodded. Indeed. I skipped the dungeon run, but I've got so many other things to do, and everyone is going to be excited to find out that there is another world with a Darklight host presence, even if there isn't an official branch here yet. Give it time, and I'm sure there will be. Then we can come visit freely. Clan leader Narissa could only imagine the horrors that would come when a bunch of random supreme-ranked guild members started to drop by for tea. The Darklight hosts didn't seem like the sort to simply sit around and socialize. They would want to go out and do things, and that would throw off the whole power balance of a region where none of the Supremes were actually capable of holding a civil conversation, much less working together. Honestly, that was their own fault. They had spent too long letting their egos get in the way, rarely moving around after they reached supreme rank, so they had settled into a stalemate of rivalry and stopped coordinating to try to push themselves all ahead. In retrospect, letting them start showing up once Carl reached supreme rank or peak immortal might actually be good for the new home clan. It would push everyone to better themselves, and from what she could tell, these guild members actually had some confidence in helping immortals advance. That prospect alone was enough to get her excited. If New Home had a second supreme, she wouldn't have to deal with every interclan issue herself. There were a few of the elders who were very close already, but her guidance hadn't been able to help them pass the bottleneck. If they could make an alliance with the Darklight host's other branches, that might not remain the case for too much longer. Just thinking about it was glorious. But her musing was interrupted by Merrick opening a portal that led to another immortal world. It really is time for us to go. Branch leader Carl, it's been a pleasure to meet you. Dana, Narissa likewise, the dragon announced, then handed Yuan to Carl and simply walked away. I guess it got two people way out for him. He hides it pretty good, but being around people is a lot of work. Yuan decided, then yawned. Ali smiled at the little dragon, who equated a hatchling's constant need for sleep with being around people. But he wasn't completely wrong. Merrick didn't like being around people for long periods of time, especially if they asked him questions. The only reason that he had put up with it at all was because it was a hatchling black dragon, and he had either a genetic or a divine imperative to educate the little one. Without that, he would have smashed the Templar's compound and left 3 minutes after the battle started. Have a good day, and I'm sure that I will see you sooner or later. Don't forget that you can message us now if you have questions. Ali rushed through the portal, while Merrick glared at her for the delay. Yuan waved goodbye, and then they were alone, left with the aftermath of the battle and a lot of repair work to do. With all the elders just returning, a lot of the work was yet to start. People fixed things that were obvious if they had the skills, but the elders would have to organize most of the repairs. Chapter 1706. Do you call it adoption? Back in Gralpedron, Ray did a casual backstroke through the diminishing pool of blood. Opal had been refilling it with illusionary blood, so the level didn't drop, but the energy level was nearly depleted, which would mark the end of her bath time. Are you going to let the blind girl go? Opal asked as she fluttered overhead into Ray's line of sight. No, that one is interesting. I think that I will keep her. Do I get a vote? The blind girl asked, vaguely aware of what was going on by the sound of swimming and the auras of the two monsters.
Not on this.
Besides, where would you go anyhow? Did you have family somewhere outside the city? I didn't sense any more in Gralpedron. Ray explained. What do you mean more? I am an orphan. I was raised by a single mother who passed away years ago. Opal frowned as she circled the girl's head. Utter nonsense. I might not be as good at the whole aura matching thing as Ray is, but your mother was a member of the Gralpedran Templars. She looked just like you. Looked. Her head is currently spiked to the wall of the new home merchant clan.
Oh.
Ray dipped under the water, then came up and spit up a fountain of blood like a breaching whale. Your father was here in the compound as well. His blood is in the pool. What the actual fuck? Right? They let the blind kid think that she was an orphan and just moved across town while you suffered alone. That was not her major concern with Ray's answer. Are you swimming in a pool of blood? Naturally. I am a blood destruction spider. It's essential to my advancement. Plus, it's thicker than water, so I float really well. The girl shuddered at the mental image, though she couldn't see anything that was happening around her and had no idea how she had come to be here. She was hiding in one of the clan's less-used buildings, but she had felt herself being moved, and then she heard the conversation between the spider and whatever small flying creature the other voice was. What are you going to do to me? I'm not good with pain. Ray laughed. No, it won't be painful. I'm just going to relocate you somewhere safe. You can see me with whatever skill you have, and that means that I can't leave you out here to grow up unattended. So, I will put you with a bunch of other interesting creatures and some baby dragons. It will be fine. The clan leader even lets us send them to school. So, you're adopting me? She asked hesitantly. Ray paused her swim and frowned. Is that what they call it? I think that's for children, not pets. Perhaps it's for pets too. Opal, do you know? I'm pretty sure it's the same for both. It's adopted if you're fond of them, and took them in if you're neutral. You're fond of this girl, so it's adopted. Maish, my name is Maish, the girl stammered. That's just a girl in Elvish. Opal noted. Wait, what? We already knew that. We can see it with the system interface. But your name, it is an Elvish word that literally translates to girl. Specifically, a young one. For the elves, that's under about 50, but they use it for human girls that are teenage or younger. Opal explained helpfully. Maish sat down. So, my parents named me Girl, abandoned me when they realized that I was blind, and just moved across town so that I would think that they were dead, but they didn't have to do anything? Yeah, pretty much. Don't worry, though. They died horrible deaths. Ray consoled her. I don't know if you meant that to be sympathetic or not. Opal laughed at the girl's confusion, then landed right on top of the girl's head. Hey, since you're a mage, why didn't you just learn a skill to see? Like, we gave echolocation to a deaf rogue, and she could use it just fine, though her ears were broken. Surely, there is something that you could use. Well, I can't read the damned skill books, now can I? Ray laughed as she drained the last of the essence from the pool. The girl has a point. She has soul sight, but soul sight can't read books. Opal giggled. Oh, we should bless her with a skill. But I think that this one calls for Carl to make something special. Just returning basic sight to her wouldn't be any fun. Maybe permanent X-ray vision. Or expanding her visual range into the chaotic spectrum. Did I do something to you? Why are you thinking of ways to torture me? Maish pleaded. No, those are good things. Opal insisted. I am not entirely certain that is true. I can see souls already, and I know things that I would rather not know. Seeing through clothing sounds like just another way to suffer. But nobody could hide things from you. Knowledge is power. Ray raised her hand to stop the little fae. No, she's got a point. Always seeing through clothing would be inappropriate for younger audiences. We don't need to traumatize the girl with wrinkly old man balls in public. Besides, if we just give her vision back, there are naked elves everywhere. Why? Maish complained, not understanding what they were talking about. Oh, they just dislike clothing. Don't worry, it's all women. Well, almost all women. Then there are the baby dragons, but they don't transform yet. Ray explained. I would like to point out that you aren't wearing anything either, Opal added. I just got out of the bath. I've still got to polish my skin before I get dressed. Blood gets sticky if you don't follow the process. Maish sighed. She had been captured by a pair of insane beasts. But they weren't trying to kill her, even though the rest of the clan was all dead. Her soul sight said that very few had managed to escape the area alive. The only ones left in town were the non-combatants and the other clans who had refused to follow the Templars. Chapter 1707. Ray's Pet Human. Ray arrived back in the tiny world with Opal and her new pet human, only to find that everyone she wanted to show the girl off to was gone. "Oh, you've brought us a girl? Do we need to bring over a healer?" one of the elven druids asked. "No. She was born blind. Healing won't fix it. I was hoping to find the Carl and have him make a new custom sight skill for her. But if he's busy, we can settle her first. Just let me pick the perfect spot." I was thinking a nice tree fort, but given her limitations, that risks having her fall out. So, something at or below ground level for safety. Wait, I can use that new skill for my pet human, like the cat does for the pet elf. The druid laughed, as she had met shade. That cat was quite fond of his pet elf, and had presumably influenced Ray to do the same. "Is that why you kept a young human?" "No. She has soul sight and can see me in incorporeal form. I wasn't willing to risk leaving her for an enemy to use, but she was too pitiful to kill. Get this. Her parents made her an orphan without actually dying. They just ditched her at a house in town because she couldn't see them to go looking for them." "Why not ask for them by name?" Maish sighed. "They lied to me about their names. When I went looking around the clan for them, nobody knew who I was talking about and assumed I was just an orphan with no sense of time. But it was a clan compound, so they gave me food and clothes and let me stay in a dorm room anyhow." That's just diabolical. Though, I must say, Maish does have a nice ring to it in the common language, girl. The druid giggled, and the girl sighed. "I'm never going to escape that nickname, am I? But come to think of it, for years I thought that people were just rude and dismissive, calling me girl. Nobody ever told me it had another meaning." "They likely didn't know. If they don't speak Elven, or have a system that shows the original name, they might just see it as your name. Now, let's get you fed and settled. Ray, can you buff her sight or something? It would be easier than teaching her the layout of a new place." Ray shook her head. "No, all my sight abilities are innate. But I'll just make her a space right over there by the rock, so she's close to the food and the beach. Then, we can move her later, but I know where to find her once I have skills for her. After everything she's been through, you're going to have her camp until she can see?" Ray shrugged. "Well, you live by the swamp, that's not safe either. She'd just fall off the bridges." "Ooh, I know. We can give her to the bunnies. Let me go catch one." Before anyone could stop her, Ray was gone, and then back, holding a bunny who was restrained with a loop of silk webbing. "Bunnies need system access. I hate having to guess names. You will be Lala until further notice. I have a task for you. This mage is blind and needs to be shown around her new home until she has it memorized or she can see. You can do that, right?" My name was Lala, to begin with, but yes, I can help her get accustomed to her new home, Lady Ray. "Where is she staying?" "Where did Carl put you?" "Pet humans can likely stay with the pet bunnies." The bunny looked confused. "Who was the pet here?" "Yes, we can find her a room near ours." "What tasks will she need to accomplish?" "Nothing important yet. She can help you all with whatever it is that you're doing if she's able. If not, just make sure that she doesn't get damaged until I can find a sight skill for her." "Why not use a skill book?" "She can't read them." "Oh, right. Wow, that is horrible. I mean, she's got a class and everything but can't do the mage thing and just read books to learn new spells." "Oh, we could read them to her." "No, that wouldn't work. Mage skills have too many diagrams." Ray nodded. "That's why we will bring Carl back to solve the problem." "Did he make a spot for all of you, or just tell you to find rooms?" "He gave us rooms and had the people here help us get settled." Ray smiled at Opal. "I think that we can do better. You do illusions, I will do a pet space, and we can make the perfect place for all of them." "You can use that?" the bunny asked. "Of course. It's just building a better nest, and I'm really good at that. Now, where do we put it? Do you like hills, forests, grasslands, lakes, or swamps?" "Open grasslands," the bunny answered immediately. "Then we can put up a spot near the base of the hill that the guild house is on. That's near enough to everything that it's not inconvenient if you're going to help with the cooking or cleaning. But it's all open grass for dozens of kilometers." That should be enough room to run, and there is nothing for Maish to trip over or run into. The mage sighed. Her life was being dictated by an immortal spider demon, and the considerations seemed much less like they were about helping her than creating a comfortable kennel. Opal opened a portal for them, and Ray carried both of their guests through, while the druid followed out of pure curiosity. The first thing that Opal did was to create a small white adobe villa, surrounded by manicured hedges, with a flower garden. It was the illusionary domain spell, but here in Carl's tiny world, it was a solid physical change to the space. Then, Ray used pet space on the villa, decorating it, and expanding the interior to something large enough to hold dozens of bunnies, plus one human mage. Well, mostly human mage. Her father had some elf blood. It was tasty. Alright, the spell says that should be the perfect space for the intended residence, but I don't know what it looks like inside. Ray explained. But you made it anyhow? What could go wrong? Chapter 1708. Needs a home. Opal flitted into the building, then came back out laughing. Yes, this place should be perfect for the bunnies. You can have them all move here if you want, or you can take turns watching Ray's mage. She explained. Lala shrugged. We will see what it looks like. If it's more comfortable, we don't mind moving from where the others put us. It really didn't matter to them where they stayed. The clan leader of the Gralpedran Templars was notorious for making them sleep in the yard if they were on duty in the morning so that he could kick them awake at first light. From what they could tell, there was none of that in this place, and they were even nice to the mortals. Or, this was just a storage spot for mortals that the immortals occasionally visited. But from what they had heard, this was actually their house of sorts. Or, it was in their house. It was hard for the bunnies to decipher how the whole thing worked, but Lala decided that they had a pretty good thing going here, and she would happily babysit a blind mage if that made the boss and his friends satisfied with her work. The bunny led Maish inside, holding her hand so the blind girl didn't get lost in the entry or run into anything. Then, she stopped suddenly as she saw the main room. It's all covered in pillows and fluffy blankets, she whispered reverently. Ray looked at the pile of bedding and nodded. It looks like it was intended to make a sleeping den in the middle of the main room. Though, I suppose it's easy enough to rearrange everything for social events. And then on this side, we have a kitchen. It looks like it's properly stocked, but I don't know if the food is real. It is. It's part of the spell's magic to feed the occupant, but you still have to cook. I recommend talking to the druids, or the green dragon cleric. Many of them have mystic cooking as a trade skill, and they can make you the most wonderful things. I know that Maish was eating at the clan's cafeteria, but I suspect that nobody gave the bunnies the good stuff. Ray agreed. Nobody ever gave the bunnies the good stuff, which was a shame because if they were a bit faster and more powerful, they would be devilishly fun to chase around the tiny world. The hatchlings were sure to enjoy it. There are games rooms here, but I don't know how many of them you can play. And a library, but it's empty, and we didn't bring any books. If we come back to the main room, there is a staircase by the kitchen. Lala narrated as she led the girl through the house, and to the second floor, which was set up like the middle floor of the Drawd Guild house, with a central hallway and dozens of bedrooms. And this is all bedrooms. Let's try the first one on the right, since it's easiest to get to. Oh, it's got a bed on the far wall, a dresser on the left, and a restroom on the right with a shower. This is nice, very cozy. It was all natural wood and dark colors, looking like the interior of a rabbit warren with minimal light until you open the curtains. Then, it was still dark, but the large window made it feel open, with a view out over the grasslands of the tiny world. I think that this one can go to Maish, since it's easiest to get to. No need to count doors when you're the first one on the right, the bunny decided. The mage ran her fingers over everything, learning the shape of the room, and then flopped down on the large soft bed. This is like heaven. It's not even dinner time yet, and I'd gladly fall asleep. Ray smiled. There were many more interesting things in this house for them to find, but they could do that on their own time. I am off now to go see how the Carl is doing. Make sure that you both eat and get to bed on time. Tomorrow will be a big day for everyone. Is there something planned? I can put it on the schedule so that we're fully staffed. How many people do you need? Do we have the equipment? Lala asked. Oh, it's not that serious. I just wanted to try new ways to teach the mage how to see and introduce you and the other bunnies to the hatchlings. I'm almost entirely certain that hatchling dragons love bunnies. Lala sighed. Yes, they did. They loved bunnies entirely too much. The bunnies were too nice to drive them away, so the hatchlings would literally follow them around for hours at a time, asking endless questions until they ran out of energy and fell asleep, forcing the bunnies to bring them back home. The hatchlings naturally saw nothing wrong with the system. They had many questions, and the older dragons made them figure too many things out for themselves. So, they gravitated to people who would actually answer their questions instead of giving them a homework assignment on how to be a dragon. The elves were also a good option. They had long lifespans, so they knew lots of things, and they couldn't fly, so they didn't try to make the hatchlings do dragon things to figure it out for themselves. Opal returned to her study, also known as the library in the replica guild house, while Ray immediately left for where Carl was, now that she was satisfied that she had sorted out the issues with her new human. They had done a good thing today, bringing in the bunnies. Things would work much more smoothly here when they had a bunch of people with work ethic, not an easily distracted Carl, and a bunch of druids who were only marginally more reliable than Lotus. But speaking of reliable, she needed to give her minions in the Drawd Guild house more instructions. She had new designs for this season's fashion that they needed to start making. Chapter 1709. Everyone has a specialty. Outside the tiny world, Carl and the beasts that were able to use earth manipulation type magic, or nature magic, were busy helping the clan rebuild some of what they had lost. Nearly 2/3 of the residential areas of the clan had been destroyed, with most of what was left being in the elders' residences portion of the compound. Among the apartments, only Carl and Dana's plus a few others that had stronger members living in them had survived. Most of that was due to them being upgraded with more powerful barriers, and not luck. That was the same reason that the most important buildings, such as the warehouse, the alchemy yard, and the skill repository were still standing, though the library had taken a direct hit and had suffered extensive damage to one wing of the building. Kara and Remy were over there now, doing what they could to help clear the rubble and save the books, while Carl and Leo worked on the apartments close to their own. Thor had gone further out with Tion, as they worked well together to completely rebuild entire structures so they could quickly reconstruct partially destroyed buildings, based on what the surviving portions looked like.
All they needed was a plan.
Fortunately, the elders had been good enough to provide the appropriately skilled workers with a basic layout of each of the buildings in the clan compound. Not quite a blueprint, but they could at least see what the floor plan was supposed to look like and how the building had been designed the first time. The rest was down to the residents to guide them. Mostly, everyone was hoping for a bit of an upgrade, a bit more space, or a window in a room that had been designed without one. Those were things that Thor and Tion could gladly do. What was going to take time was getting someone around who could rebuild the runic arrays and other features that used to exist inside the clan. They had been developed over the course of many centuries, and they would not easily be reconstructed. Even if Carl wanted, there wasn't time to redo all the basic features of the buildings that he was fixing. However, that was what Dana was focused on right now. Elder Douglas had pleaded for her assistance, and she had gone to help the Elder repair some of the rune-crafted effects that kept the warehouse stable and the contents from deteriorating before they were used. The building was intact, still standing, but not entirely undamaged. Plus, there were secondary warehouses in the back for lower-value goods which had taken more damage. Dana was not quite as good with the reconstruction work as Carl was, as she lacked the natural affinity for earth magic that Carl had inherited from Tion. However, she could still use the earth manipulation spell, and she was able to make runic items. As long as you can repair this, I think that we should be fine. The runes are all here. You just need to fix the ones that stopped working when they were cracked, the Elder explained. You understand that they won't be supreme ranked or whatever they were before, right? Elder Douglas nodded. Only the defensive barriers were stronger here, to begin with. The storage spells were ancient and immortal ranked. They just need to keep the materials stable, and that generally isn't too hard. Items that need special conditions are placed in smaller containers within the warehouse to keep them safe. Dana nodded and got to work fixing the cracks in the walls before patching the runes, which weren't all in languages that she recognized. She didn't know what they were supposed to do, There was some commonality between the runic language she knew and whatever world's language had been used here. So, she had high hopes that it would all work again without starting over. Dana worked quickly to get the warehouse up and functional, and then cautiously poured energy into it. She watched as the runes flickered to life, then stabilized with a soft glow. All right, the main building is back online again. I will move on to the smaller ones. Do you know if any of them are repaired and ready for runes, or should I just start with what is closest? Elder Douglas shrugged. They've all got some damage. Ask the bunnies what is critical. They know what ones they go to the most often, and their dorm is back there as well. That would be Dana's priority. Everyone else was happy to be working on housing first, so she would fix the barracks that the bunnies lived in, and then move on to the warehouses. Only, when she arrived in the back, she found that they were the same thing. The bunnies had set up tiny apartments all through the in-use sections of the storage warehouses, turning the whole thing into a maze of rarely accessed materials and rabbit warrens. This is nice. I like what you've done with the place. Now, what does it need to fix the building, and what does it need to return the functions for the stored items? Once that is done, I will work to get your apartments fixed. Do you know Opal? She has a most wonderful skill for creating a comfortable home space, especially now that Carl has gotten new abilities in that regard. I will call her over and have the little Fae fix you all up with some comfortable resting areas, Dana offered. I don't think that we're allowed to alter the warehouse, one of the bunnies whispered. It's fine. Even just upgrading the break room with a villa stone, I can make you somewhere really comfortable and private. It's already approved for staff use by the bunnies, so there's no issue. The long-eared beastkin grouped together to discuss the prospect. Nobody ever gave them things, and they weren't quite sure how to respond to that. It was an improvement to the clan's building, though. The clan made it a break room, and it needed repairs. So, it should be fine to let the Dana mage make it in the new style. Alright, we think it's fine if you make it however you think will be best for the clan. Chapter 1710. Break Room. Having heard Dana's thoughts, Opal came right over after she finished setting everything up for their new guests and having a short nap. These things never happened on time, with her sleep schedule. The bunnies were startled when the small Fae appeared inside the warehouse compound, which was normally protected by barriers that would prevent such a thing. You couldn't just have anyone able to come and go as they pleased within the warehouse. That would defeat the purpose of trying to keep things safe and regulate access for everyone to have a fair shot at getting what they needed. It would also require the elders to be on constant guard to prevent theft. So, what is the option for the day? A whole city set up for the bunnies in this empty warehouse? She asked eagerly. It's actually still in use. First, do up something nice for them in the break room. I was thinking of doing a villa stone for them, but you can likely do better. I know that you've got the creativity if you aim it in the right direction. Opal gave her 2 thumbs up. I've got this. Employee break room with sleeping quarters, so that they don't have to set up makeshift bunks in empty shelving units. Though some of those look quite cozy, so they might want to keep them anyhow. Alright, you fix the building structure, and I will make them the perfect break and relaxation room so that the new home's bunnies are running at peak efficiency. Dana was more than a little concerned about the phrasing of that, but Opal was helping, so she let it slide. The forest trickster was planning to live up to the reputation of her species this time, and she was going to make a special space that was just for the bunnies and the followers of Carl, naturally. The front room was perfectly normal, exactly what you'd think that it should be. A break room lounge with a long table, and a kitchen that she had to work very hard to make perfect, as she was a bit clumsy at converting the illusion of food into real food with runes. On the far side of what appeared to be the whole break room were a bunch of comfortable chairs and sofas. Then there were 2 doors. One that led to a room full of bunk beds for naps, one marked utility closet for storing cleaning materials, and one unmarked one. That one was only visible to the bunny species and anyone aligned with Carl. That was where the real break room started. She had the whole warehouse worth of space to work with, as there were no other overlapping separate spaces to get in the way. So, she created an entire spa, complete with salon, massage stations, hot tubs, pools, a steam sauna, and an obstacle course. She surrounded it with gardens, planted with flowers and vegetables, then created stairs up to a second level, where there would be nearly 100 luxury apartments. They all had huge beds, as Opal knew that the bunnies liked to sleep in groups for the sense of community and safety. With that in mind, she also made the option for the spiral staircases to be folded into the wall, invisible to those who didn't know they existed. When that was done, and the hatch was closed, the upper level would be hidden from nearly all intruders who made it past the first door. The sense of safety would encourage the bunnies to stay in here, which was the goal that Dana had in mind when she asked Opal to come and help. But the hiding stairs weren't the only safety measure. The spa wouldn't be a spa without workers. The gargoyle and epic golem spells were perfect for creating staff for the spa. A few elven high priestesses for healing and recovery, as well as protecting the reception area.
And then a
whole lot of male bunnies. There were virtually none in the clan that she had noticed, and the ladies deserved some big buff eye candy. It took her some time, but her research efforts had given her a solid foundation to base the male bunnies on, going by the clan members that the bunnies subtly watched as they passed. Once everything was made, all that Opal had to do was layer a second illusion with the necessary runes to make the effects real and use reality warp to turn that illusion into a solid object, bypassing the writing part of the rune crafting process. Satisfied that her work was complete, Opal flew back out of the break room to find the bunnies waiting eagerly to see their new space. Ladies and ladies, welcome to your new break room. Please come in and explore to your heart's content. If I have missed anything, please let me know. But I think that I've got all the essentials. I even added the extra fluffy towels. Opal announced. The bunnies looked confused as they stepped into the kitchen, and then faintly scandalized as a buff male with bunny ears and a very visible six-pack of abs visible over the black slacks that made up his entire outfit. "Oh, hello. Are you new here? It's so good to meet you," the closest of the bunnies announced as she rushed forward to greet him. The big bunny man smiled at her and reached into the oven to take out a tray of cinnamon buns that he had been warming for their arrival. Indeed. You could say that I am new here. I am part of the break room enchantment. Miss Opal thought that it was only right that those who serve others so diligently should have somewhere that they could be served and waited on like the fluffy-eared goddess they are. Outside the break room, Dana sighed. That break room had a 100% chance of turning into the scene of an erotic novel, and they hadn't even made it past the kitchen yet. Opal had the bunnies addicted with just one man and a tray of sweet pastries.